Well, it's May 3rd, 2012. This is Robert's maiden voyage with trees. And we're planting across the street from the Johnson Road. And he's purchased roughly 3,000 trees. And this apparently is going to be a joint effort, but yet a family tree farm, but mostly his retirement plan.
How was Beech Ridge Farm started? What year did it start and by whom?
Yeah, so my mom and dad actually bought Beech Ridge Farm in 1969 and moved in 1970. That was the start of the farm as a farm for our family. And then over the years, it's had multiple businesses on it, all under the name Beech Ridge Farm, with Carter Feeds, like for animals and livestock, and then went to Blue Seal Feeds. My mom ran that. Was really the entrepreneur that was behind the businesses. For a short time, they did cross-country skiing, and they also, of course, as you guys probably all know now, they started the Christmas tree business. Not sure exactly what year. I think it was around 1985, and ran it and had decided to stop planting trees while Shannon and the kids and I were still in the Navy and we were moving around. We made the decision to pick up where my folks had left off, and we started planting trees again in 2012. So for several years we had to buy trees in order to supplement our trees because we didn't have a bunch left. And now the farm is predominantly Christmas trees with some other stuff kind of started. We can talk about that later.
How many trees are sold on average every year?
It really depends a lot on what we have for available stock. It's a tree. So some trees grow better, some trees not so much, and the years kind of ebb and flow with the quantities. But you know, I'd say 600, 700 trees in the course of a season are probably about right.
How many trees do you currently have on the lot?
I'd estimate probably 4,500 trees. I don't count them, but just driving around and getting rough numbers and multiplying by the number of rows to get a rough idea, probably about 4,000 to 5,000 trees left.
What are the most trees that have been on the lot at one time?
I would definitely say that was when my mom and dad were running the business. I remember the first, when they first started planting, they put in 500. And the next year, I think they put in like 2,000 trees, and the year after that, we planted like 12,000 trees or something all at once. So that was by far probably the largest number that we planted in a year, and the largest number of total trees that we've ever had in the ground. It was a lot.
What are the most trees that you've ever sold in a year?
Again, probably back to when my mom and dad were running the business. You know, they would routinely, of course, they were open 7 days a week for the entire Christmas season, whereas our business, the current business model, is that we only open up on the weekends. So in the amount of time, I would say probably the most we've ever sold is about 800 trees since our generation has taken over selling the trees. When my parents were doing it, I would say they were selling 1,200 to 1,300 trees a year, but those were really busy years too.
How is the property maintained? Do you have employees, or do you just work with yourself and your family?
So predominantly, the entire property is maintained by me and my sister Mary. Of course, the kids do help when they're available. You know, between school and work and sports, it's kind of a challenge, but pretty much an in-house operation with just family, no external employees.
How many acres do you have to maintain, and like how many hours a week do you spend doing that?
So buildings wise, we have the original brick farmhouse that was built in the 1700s. The original storefront and warehouse, which were built in 80 and 85, and the old barn, this building here, which was built in 1700s. The buildings take a lot of maintenance, and it's, I don't know, probably if you averaged it out, it's probably about 5 hours a week to actually do the maintenance on most of the buildings. In addition to that, the fields and whatnot, of course, because of Maine winters, we don't have to worry about it so much in the winter times. But during the summer, from now about the beginning of May, end of April, beginning of May, we mow in between the trees. There's probably about 15 acres of total tree growth for the Christmas trees. And then once in the summer, typically towards fall, we'll mow all of the traditional hay fields, just for like general aesthetic and just keep it from turning into like shrubs and brush and slash and stuff like that you don't really want in the fields. So, but on average, I'd say I could work 40 hours a week and not get ahead, but I probably work about 10 hours a week, and then my sister usually helps me about the same amount of time.
How did the business handle COVID, and were there any struggles?
For us, because it's such an interesting little niche business, we weren't really impacted by COVID. Most everybody that came here, it was we just did what we needed to do to adhere to like Maine CDC standards of, you know, we were outdoors, but it was still trying to maintain the 6 feet, and people had their mask on, and we, you know, provided, you know, sanitizing gels and stuff like that, just all the normal best practices. But it was really seamless. People still wanted to have their Christmas because they were spending so much time inside. It was really not even an issue for us.
What does the future hold for Beech Ridge Farm, and what are some recent additions you've made to the farm?
So it's kind of up in the air. We are trying to diversify a little bit. Farms are really time consuming. They're a lot of work, and they don't typically make a ton of money unless you're really good at diversifying what you do on the farm. We've done Christmas trees a lot, you know, over the years. My mom and dad tried with the grain business and the cross-country ski business to diversify. You know, we have some things that we're considering planting some wine grapes. I'm seriously considering, I'd really like to turn this barn into like an event barn or like a tavern, something like that. I'm working with the town currently to maybe do that. And then who knows, the kids might have ideas that they want to start pursuing. I know Logan has talked about like a mechanic shop to work on cars and whatnot, and Hunter's talked about raising other types of trees and things like that. So, you know, we'll see. We'll kind of see what time tells.
How is the market for Christmas trees, and what's the pricing like?
The price, it's kind of interesting because our venue where it's choose and cut, it's kind of like going to Libby's for the apple orchard or whatnot. You might pay a little bit more for the actual apples, but you're really going there for the experience. Similarly with the choose and cut Christmas tree organizations, there's not a lot of choose and cut trees, choose and cut Christmas tree farms left. So those of us that are still in the business, they're kind of our competitors, but we all talk, we're all friends, we're all friendly, we get advice from each other, we get ideas from each other, and you know, we're supportive of each other. When we get close to running out of trees, I kick it over to our cohorts that are doing the same sort of thing. What I would say is that on a supply and demand, from a supply and demand perspective, the demand is much higher than the supply. The only thing that's really, I would argue, holding back the price of real Christmas trees is, one, fake trees, and those are looking more and more realistic, and they're safe. There's perception of safety because they're treated with flame retardant materials, and then really just the business owners kind of feeling guilty about the prospect that they don't want to overcharge, because we think that most of us really want to make sure that people can enjoy that activity. So those are really the only barriers to us raising the price. I think that supply and demand, they could be a lot more expensive and people would still buy.
What are your costs to run the business?
Oh, yeah. It's kind of diverse right now. I can give you some ideas on some of the things that we do have to procure. We don't ever really factor in our labor because we're just here and doing it. But you could go back and kind of do the reverse math on what I told you for hours, and I've grossly underestimated how much time I take every week on the farm. But we buy tractor fuel for the tractors, fuel for the farm itself, heating pellets for the farm itself, electricity, cable, and things of that nature. You know, between taxes and all the overhead and electrical power for the farm, you're probably looking at easily $50,000, $60,000 a year. Property tax alone is $10,000 a year for the farm. You know, and electricity is about $1,000 a month. So you can kind of figure that out from there. But then in addition to all of that, you have things like fertilizer, stuff like that for helping the trees grow, sprays and things to inhibit some of the weeds and things like that. So kind of expensive, but it's worth it.
And our final question is, how do you market your business, if any at all?
We haven't really needed to, honestly. Just the organic traffic, you know, return customers. We have generational visitors, you know, people that have been coming here since they were, they were babies that are still coming back to buy trees and whatnot. So, again, supply severely falls short of, supply is way short of demand. So we've never really had to spend on marketing. Really, all I have is a super basic website and a Facebook page, and literally that's it. I think that we could potentially do a lot more in the way of marketing to try and draw the business, and I'm sure that'll come as we start to diversify a little bit more.
All right, that's it.
Cool. Thanks, guys.